Hey, this is Marty Friedman. You are listening to Metal Wani. It's an inferno up in here.
Yes, sir. How are you doing?
Very nice to meet you.
First of all, Inferno. I would like to congratulate you for releasing probably your highly anticipated album, which surely is the most intense as well as, in terms of writing as well as playing you have ever done.
Thank you very much.
And it seems to be like Inferno is by far the most thrilling and the adventurous effort till date, looking at the number of guest musicians that are on the album and the kind of work and effort that has been put in this particular album. So how was the songwriting process this time?
Yeah, it was very long. It was very intense, very hard. I spent more time listening to the songs than usual. Usually,
right.
I do an album in about 3 months, but this took about 14, maybe 16 even months. It's hard to really say, but I listened to the demos so many times and changed the arrangements so many times to really get the most active feelings out of the songs, and I had to really be honest with things. Sometimes I would work really hard on something and finally get it done, and then I think, oh, this is great, just because I worked on it. But then when I listen to it, it's really not that great. So I threw a lot of things away, even though I did a lot of work on it.
Okay.
Like, for example, I worked on this one song for that I was going to do with Jorgen Munkeby from Shining.
Okay.
I came up with this whole intense piece of music, and then I sent him that, and I sent him a very little idea for Meat Hook.
Okay.
And he seemed to like the Meat Hook idea much better. So we wound up working on that instead, and instead of this whole thing that I worked on for months. So I wound up throwing that away, and Meat Hook turned out to be much better. So I just have to be honest as listening to things.
True.
Just because I worked on it doesn't mean that it's great. That was a really hard thing to do.
Absolutely. Now, while listening to the album, I could figure out that this album probably means a lot to you. I think your aim was to create some sort of an impact, and you wanted to make sure you spread this havoc around the world. And I think you gave a lot of thought about fans as well. I mean, what they want to hear, like what they're expecting from you, and at the same time, what you want to create. So probably I would say that you maintained a good balance between your direction as well as what fans were expecting.
Well, that's exactly the way I feel about it. I mean, I wanted to do something that was important to me, but I also wanted to make sure that fans would really get excited about it too. I mean, there's a lot of avant-garde stuff that I'd like to do, but I think it might turn a lot of people off. So I didn't want to put that on this record, but I didn't want to just do a bunch of old Cacophony rewrites and stuff like that. I wanted to do stuff that was new. So you're exactly right. I wanted to do both of those things, and those were the goals.
Absolutely. And the album also includes guest appearances by various artists, like you have Rodrigo, and then the Bodom's Alexi Laho, Keshav from Skyharbor, and David Davidson, and the most anticipated collaboration with Jason Becker. Now, since the pair, you guys played together in Cacophony, the pioneering duo of guitar mayhem, what made you choose these musicians in your solo album?
Well, obviously Jason is a separate situation.
Right.
But the other guys were suggested to me. The record company came up with this list of people, artists who had mentioned me in their interviews.
Okay.
Said nice things about me in the interviews, and I really haven't kept up on what's been happening outside of Japan for the last 10 years, so I don't really know the bands, the members, what people are saying. And so the record company came up with this big list of just wonderful things people said. And so I researched the people on this list.
Okay.
And I found that they had all been great musicians on their own, and they didn't really sound like me, even though they say that they're influenced by me, but they've got their own complete original styles.
Right.
And so I was impressed by that. And then when I asked them to possibly do a collaboration, everybody was so enthusiastic, and and it just made it a whole lot of fun, and it kind of gives you a break, because my music can be kind of intense if it's all just me the whole time. So I really wanted to have some songs where my playing contrasts with another completely different person, and I think that's what a lot of people liked about when I was in Megadeth, because I came in and I played, and it stood out against something else.
Right.
And my music is like, it's 100% Marty all the time, which could make you vomit, I think.
Right.
So I think it's really kind of a matter of like mixing the spices in the right way. And I knew that I wanted to collaborate with people who had interesting things that they do on their own. So the guests did that a really good job of making me have a contrast.
That's awesome. And there's a certain amount of magic when Jason and Marty work together. Despite his illness, your fans have witnessed this great composition titled Horrors, with you and Jason working together after a long time. Now, you both have a great camaraderie, and even though he doesn't play guitar, it's easily evident that the songwriting capabilities are top-notch.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, it's also evident that it sounds like Jason in certain parts. And the acoustic parts, I didn't play them. I had a guy named Ewan Dobson play those parts, because, I mean, I'm not really the best acoustic guitarist in the world, and Ewan is definitely one of the best. So he could play what I wrote with Jason on acoustic and make it sound like Jason and me playing. Now, if I were to play it on acoustic, it would sound so much like me. It wouldn't sound like Jason at all, because I'm not really good at emulating other people's styles.
Right. So there's a different vibe when it comes to Jason playing acoustic guitars.
Certainly is. I mean, there's parts of Horrors that, to me, it sounds a little bit like that song Air from Jason Becker. But Air was done on an electric and Horrors on acoustic.
Right.
But it's just so much more evolved since those days, and I couldn't be happier with that collaboration of a song. I mean, it was a beast to work on in the studio and to arrange and all that. But Ewan Dobson really helped by playing a lot of acoustic on that song and giving it the sound of having Jason's spirit come through.
Right. That's awesome. Now, can you tell us more about your time in Cacophony? I mean, how did you meet Jason, and do you still jam along to your Cacophony era tunes?
I don't really jam along to anything. I wouldn't imagine doing that. But I was going to do a solo album, actually my very first solo album with Shrapnel Records in America, and I was about 80% done, maybe more.
Right.
And Mike Varney, who's the president of the label, said, "You got to hear this kid Jason Becker. He's a great guitar player." And I'm like, I don't really care about other guitar players, man. I'm about to do my record. What do I care?
Right.
I don't want to hear some other good guitar player. He said, "Just listen to the guy, man. Just meet him once." I'm like, all right, whatever. I just wanted to get my solo record done. So Jason came to my apartment, and we immediately hit it off and became friends. He was just such a cool guy.
Right.
He was only 16 at the time, maybe turning 17 or something like that.
Awesome.
And he played so beautifully, and he learned so quickly. If I played something, even if it was very strange, he would understand it quickly and play it very quickly. So I thought, if I have this guy with me, we can play my solo music live.
Right.
Because a lot of my solo music is very layered. There's many harmonies and counterpoints.
True.
He's the only guy I know who can actually play it properly.
Right.
So I wanted to keep him around, and I thought, he doesn't have a whole lot of interesting music yet. At that point, he had like a kind of a crappy demo. It was like really good lead guitar playing, but the songs were not very developed very well. It was just kind of random. But there was a couple of really interesting moments on there.
Right.
And I just wanted him to be in my band so much that I took some of the interesting parts of his demo, and I kind of made them find their way into the first album, which turned into the Cacophony Speed Metal Symphony.
Yes.
And then we started writing a few things together, and he wrote some really cool stuff that we put on the record, and we made a band out of it. And So that's how that happened.
Wonderful. And I always wonder, I mean, you use very strange Egyptian or I don't know what Chinese scales in your playing.
Not really scales, not really scales, but as you know, I mean, you're in India, so like for example, in sitar music, there's a lot of it's not scale oriented. It's kind of there's your notes, and there you put in different orders, and you can do unusual things with different phrasing.
Right.
And so things sound maybe Egyptian or Chinese or Persian or whatever. That just comes from maybe borrowing phrases from foreign music and kind of changing them around, kind of like on the surface, copying foreign music, but not really,
Or is it more like you consider an instrument like sitar more like an inspiration to use all these non-metal sounding scales and make them sound metal?
I don't know about scales, but like I might learn a passage from sitar. I mean, I definitely did that when I was in my teens. I listened to Ravi Shankar, and there would be some phrases on there that don't sound like anything any of guitar players were doing. So I would learn it and analyze it and say, wow, that's an interesting thing to do. And then I would make it my own,
right,
and change it around and make it, first of all, I try to make it easier to play.
Right.
And then, I do that with a lot of different foreign music. That kind of kept me from sounding like, Van Halen or Jeff Beck, like everybody else sound like back then.
I understand. And what's your take on the advance of extended range instruments? Like you have the 7-string guitars, 8-string guitars in metal these days.
I think it's great. I mean, whatever makes you happy, I've been playing a lot of 7-string. For the last couple of years and on tour and on Inferno. I find it great for rhythm. It just, why play a C when you can play a lower C?
Right.
It just makes sense. It just sounds better.
Right. And in terms of the collaboration with Keshav Dhar from India, now he's one of the most famous musicians in India who has worked really hard with his bedroom project Skyharbor, which is now a full-fledged band. How did the collaboration came across? And I'm sure you played a solo on his first solo album.
Yeah, I think he's a superstar. I think he's going to influence a lot of people, not only in India but around the whole world. And I think soon too. He's definitely influenced me. I mean, the way he plays guitar is exciting. I've been playing guitar a long time. Not a whole lot of guitarists excite me. I see millions of great guitar players. Don't get me wrong. There's billions of great guitar players.
I understand.
But very, very few do something that makes me go, wow, that's exciting. That's fresh. I want to have that sound in my music. So I first heard Keshav a couple years ago, and he helped me. We did some stuff together on an album I did called Tokyo Jukebox 2.
Right, yeah.
And he does his own thing like Skyharbor, but he's also capable of so much more. I mean, we did arrangements of Japanese songs together, and it doesn't sound like Skyharbor. It's just his own original sound comes through, and we did like maybe 4 songs together on that album, maybe 5, maybe 3, a lot of songs.
Awesome. And
I had him co-arrange the songs with me and play guitar, and I just really, really loved working with him a lot. And so Steroid Head, it was a collaboration just like the other songs. I wanted his sound, and I wanted my sound to be a contrast to his sound.
Awesome. And you must be aware that there are tons of instrumental bands who have come up from past few years, and they don't want to have vocals in it. Probably they might consider that it's easy not to have vocals, but making instrumental music is more like a challenge in itself. So what's your opinion on those bands? I mean, that kind of
a challenge, but I think the bigger challenge is finding a singer who wants to sing at the same time where there's crazy guitar playing going on.
Right.
Nobody wants to do it.
True.
I mean, that's why it was very hard in Cacophony for us to really get a singer that was going to take us into the mainstream.
Right.
Because if I was a great singer, I wouldn't want to sing in front of me and Jason playing guitar, 5-minute solos and shit like that.
I understand.
So that leaves a lot of people doing instrumental stuff. But for me, I would much actually rather be in a band that's playing vocal music. Maybe have one instrumental song.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Cacophony, you had vocals and then you had few instrumental songs.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a bad example. I mean, our vocal songs were pretty close to instrumental songs. But, you know, I just, on my solo music, I really work hard at making instrumental stuff sound like it's not instrumental, because instrumental music tends to be so boring, and even if the musicianship is fantastic, it just bores me to tears. So it's very important to me to keep it exciting, and even then, I put a bunch of vocal songs on the album.
And what about the Indian metal scene? Apart from Skyharbor, are there any other bands you're aware of, or the kind of music, you know, in metal?
I did something like a year ago, maybe, for an Indian, maybe it was Indian Rolling Stone magazine.
Yeah.
Where they sent me like 5 or 6 Indian bands playing really heavy stuff, kind of like Skyharbor stuff.
Right.
I thought there was so much great stuff going on. There's a scene going on. I'm sure Keshav is like the leader of that scene or something.
Absolutely.
But I think there's a lot going on, and I don't know how much it has to do with Indian traditional music being extremely complex rhythmically. I would assume that that does help.
To some extent.
Because in Japanese music, in Japanese pop music and rock, there's a lot of Japanese traditional music influence in it.
Right.
In the melodic sense, not in the rhythmic sense, but in the melodic sense. But in Indian music, I mean, with Indian ragas, they change time signatures every single turnaround.
Right.
And I guess if you grow up with that, your mind is a little bit easier to understand doing extreme rhythm changes than us Americans who grew up listening to country music and AC/DC, where it's all just one beat. So I think the rhythmic element in what I heard from those Indian bands was absolutely fantastic.
Awesome.
And I just love it, and I love playing my guitar with it.
That's awesome. And you have a plan of going on a world tour with this album. So that brings me to the question. Marty Friedman has never come to India, at least for a gig. Is there a possibility of seeing you live maybe this year or next year?
You know, I've been waiting to go. It's just a matter of getting the right offer from a promoter.
Right.
And I'll be there in 5 minutes. You know, if a good, solid promoter comes up with a good, proper offer for me and my band to come to India, I'd be there in a minute, because I get so many mails at my website, and so many nice people, you know, from India writing to me. And I would just love to go there as a tourist, first of all, and enjoy India and play for everybody there. So I can't wait to go, and definitely meet Keshav in person. We've never met yet.
Oh, wonderful. Now, Marty, my very good friend Rustin Rose had asked you one question which you articulated to him 25 years ago. I don't know whether you remember this or not. So I'm going to ask you your own question 25 years later.
Okay.
Whose bathwater would you like to drink most? Do you remember? I know the answer which you answered back then. So has it changed, or is it still the same?
Oh yeah, it's definitely changed. But I'm very interested in what I said back then. And there's a lot of girls now that I would definitely be happy to at least taste the bathwater of.
Wonderful, Marty.
Yeah. Because I think, like, I was just in love with this newscaster named Emerald Ye.
Exactly. Now that's the name I was looking forward to.
Yeah, and actually there's a picture of Jason and me and Emerald Ye on my website. We went to the news station, the radio TV station.
Right.
We gave her a copy of my record. And there's a picture of us, and she's holding that record. You know, I'm sure she threw it away the second that we gave it to her. But anyway, that picture is still very dear to my heart.
Wonderful. So, Marty, if I have to ask you to conclude, or probably to define Inferno in just one sentence, how would that be?
Fucking amazing.
Brilliant. There we go. Thanks a lot, Marty Friedman, for sparing your precious time.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Any message to your fans in India?
I really hope that I can play there, and it's really up to you guys to make it happen. You know, promoters hear the voices of the people.
Right.
You know, so if it looks like the Indian fans want Marty Friedman to come to India,
Absolutely.
the promoters are going to find out about it. So it's up to you. Make it happen. I cannot wait to play for you all. My band is on fire, and I'm ready to go.